here we go, but I'm not domino. So, local hierarchies. Let's get into it. I think local hierarchies are going to be more and more important in the future as the federal government gradually abandons places. I saw a recent video where Robert O'Rourke, the goober that he is going to be running for governor of Texas. He's going to get blown the fuck out because he's ineffectual, he's bland, and he's a dumb honky. But in something interesting though is he doesn't want Biden to give him support. He does not want the Biden endorsement. Democrats realize that you gotta appeal to the local grassroots sort of stuff. Doesn't mean I support Democrats. It means that this is what they're going to try to do. They're giving that appeal, that image, right? Unions have been destroyed in this country. And then, of course, people like Jay Sakai, of course, are going to come out and say they were always racist. They hated black people. They supported South Africa. Blah, 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 blah. I know. He's moved on from that, though, and talked more about lumpen proletariat stuff and all that business. What the fuck is my point? My point is that local hierarchies are real. And you have to respect them. And you have to be able to understand them to get any sort of larger support. There are people who think big picture, and there are the people who are on the ground making things work. This is going to come into play with my other video I'm going to record today about getting older and holidays, right? You've got to learn how to manage different personalities and manage, people's expectations, right? Women in particular, they have this image of, the holidays, right? Where I remember growing up as a little girl and, my family would be all around and we would play Baccarat or whatever. They play dominoes or something. I just want to go back to that. I want to go back to those days. And, men do that too, but to a different extent. And so you have to understand those things, right? Like for me, in the local community here, you've got a lot of local folks who, maybe they want to make some extra money. Some folks that are on the edge of society, so to speak. Other folks, maybe they're retired, who knows, right? And they pick pecans. They pick pecans out of people's yards, stuff like that. And they sell them however much a pound, right? That's one aspect of it. You think about like Devil's Night for Detroit, right? The night before Halloween. Or, Baltimore has their own things or whatever, right? There are these traditions wherever you go. And regardless of the violence that occurs in, like Chicago or wherever else there may be, there's certain rules and regulations that do exist wherever you go. And you're like, that's a no-no to be doing that, Same thing with Nolans, wherever else, right? Now, of course, this has been, highly broken down because of, the destruction of gangs and everything else. Now gangs, like one set of Crips doesn't like the other set of Crips, etc., etc. But I think as we see the slowly dissolution, I'll say that, dissolution of the federal government, state, county, city, district, etc., or parish, or whichever term you want to say, those are going to become far more important. I've talked about this in somewhat detail in other videos, but I think you have to be mindful of that. Now, it reminded me of this because I saw these two ladies getting trashed out of the dumpster. Very polite. I come see them. They're getting stuff out. I had a bag of cans. I come out there and give it to them. And they say, hey, you're paying it forward, this and that. Hey, we're not going to leave trash around these dumpsters, et cetera, et cetera. We appreciate it, this and that. It's a local thing. Now, not everyone's going to be like that, but it's more of a, hey, if you respect them, you're going to get respect in return, right? You don't want to be all uppity and be like, oh, why are they living like that? Sometimes they don't have a choice. If you show respect to folks, they'll respect you. It's pretty simple. And so if you understand that sort of thing, then, and you're able to manage these different personalities and these different sort of motivations that people have, you're going to be better off, right? Here's another local yokel thing. There's a bike ride that occurs in this city. A lot of folks have been doing it 30 plus years, and they like to do things a certain way. So you manage the way people do that. Now, things could change, this and that, but I'm sure it's even like that in the Balkans, right? Where it's like, hey, they got beef with those folks, leave them to it, And, people get tortured. I'm sure people get killed, but that's the way it goes out there. I'm sure it's going to happen in this country too, where, we have beef with this family for whatever reason, or we have beef with so-and-so for whatever reason. And you have to understand that and realize, look, you can't change everybody. This is the failure of isms. Socialism or some sort of nationalism. It took a lot of force. It took a lot of energy to make people say, no, you're part of America now, or you're part of China, or whatever the case may be. It took a lot of energy to destroy the clans in China. It took a lot of energy to destroy, the sort of local communities, like the whiskey rebellion or whatever the case may be, to say, fuck you, we ain't paying this shit. Why do we have a revolution if we still have to pay taxes? And George Washington said, we're the new leaders now, the new boss, same as the old boss, that type of thing, right? It takes a lot of energy to do that. But once people at least give lip service, not complete loyalty, but lip service to the system, a lot of the time, local communities are allowed to do what they want. As long as they give token support, and as long as they are able to control their own house, as the phrase goes, control your own house, then larger systems are not going to worry about you. I'm sure it goes that way in China today. Hey, as long as you pledge your allegiance to Xi Jinping and his choice of, getting rid of corruption, then you good. You have no problems. If you just pledge your loyalty and do that and get rid of a couple of these troublemakers, then you're good. No Mafan being trouble, then, me banfa, I believe is the phrase. Don't worry about it. Me banfa. So that's the way it goes. You have to understand local hierarchies and understanding how things are, right? This is one of the breakdowns in the Third Reich, Hitler's Germany, right? Where there was not a loyalty to this larger idea of like Germania or whatever the case may be. It didn't exist. There is only loyalty for themselves or loyalty to units and to certain commanders, right? Berlin was not guarded. For a long time. It wasn't until the Soviets were like maybe 50 miles away from Berlin. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but until then they were like, there were all sorts of different commands that didn't get along. And so think on that. A lot of areas like, there are some folks who, I'm reading this book about Kustrin, for example. It was a while back, but reading about the now Polish city. I can't remember. I don't know what it is offhand now, but in East Prussia called Kustrin, and reading about how there were some tanks and whatnot, some king tigers that were guarding some certain area. Nobody was there. Or the SD would pick up stragglers and have, hanging court martials, this and that. Different hierarchies, right? Where it's like, hey, if you aren't on the front line, you're going to get hanged. So this is a reality of dealing with different bureaucracies, different loyalties to different people, right? Broadly speaking, let's make it more into a certain day context. That's probably going to date this video, but it'll serve the purpose for now. Broadly speaking, the right wing says, we're glad that Kyle Rittenhouse was found to be not guilty according to the law. Does that mean they agree with Trump or they agree with whoever? No. They're glad that he got off. Not necessarily because they love Kyle Rittenhouse, but because, broadly speaking, it speaks to a larger narrative to say, hey, we get to keep our guns. And, if our property gets destroyed, then, we're going to be good. The thing is, there's a misnomer, I think, between right and left. The left wing gives lip service to the idea that, people are more important than property. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. Property can be a source of revenue for people. You have to think on that, right? So regardless, I don't know what ethnicity the folks were that owned those car lots, but that's how those people were fed. That's how they eat, right? Is, selling those cars at whatever deals, and I'm sure there's some shady stuff. I'm not going to sit here and debate that. What I will say is that that's how they made their money. So property, that property and the value of that stuff, whether, Blue Book or through accounting or whichever level you want to look at it, that money protected those people. So when you say, oh, property is more than, it is better than losing people. Which people, though? And if they're not getting paid, then you're hurting people. So people and property, this is something that I think left wing and right wing has the issue with. Where it's like, if you're a farmer, you survive because of the property you own, because of that lot of land. Right? Now, of course, there are different things. The government pays people not to plant crops so they don't fuck up the market. That's how capitalism is. But to me, people and property, and of course I know Marxists are going to say, but we're not going to take your toothbrush and it's, there's personal property and private property. I know. And it's like there's a difference between corporations and small business. It's a very complicated matter. But this is one of the big things that I think a lot of people really don't understand on a bigger level, right? Soviet Union did what they could. For example, I remember watching that Sitarko video. Shout out to him. I don't necessarily agree with maybe his deeper views, but he makes good videos about Russia. So, for someone that's not from Russia, I appreciate it. But he was talking about, for example, the sanitariums, right? A lot of the big fancy mansions that were taken after the Bolshevik victory. A lot of those were turned into sanitariums. Some sanitariums were better than others, right? It's just a natural way of things. It's a different thing nowadays, right? Nowadays people, our attention spans are so fucked up. Our expectations are so screwed up that it's a whole different thing. It's like for people like me, as long as I have Wi-Fi and I can enjoy some YouTube video, or if I can watch some, maybe some old kung fu movie or something like that, I'm good. I don't care about, You don't have to try to impress me with razzle dazzle, which kind of leads into the next video I'm going to be recording about holidays, expectations, and getting older. But anywho, I'm getting off topic. The thing is that local hierarchies exist, and they're going to become more and more prominent as the federal government cedes control. And we're seeing this already. I've repeated this before, and I think it's worth saying again. Turkey is regaining power as a regional force. Iran is returning to a regional force. Syria is beginning to say, I appreciate, what Iran did for me and to save my government. But you know what? Now that I'm starting to win, I need to keep my distance and to try to create some sort of loyalty so I can give an image that I'm still the HNIC. I'll just say this once. I'll try to say it as quietly as I can. Head nigga in charge. That's what it means. HNIC. And he's got to present that strength to the Syrian people. Feel as you want to. Like I say, I'm not some simp who's just, some blind supporter of Assad. He is who he is, right? But it's a bigger thing. Do you have loyalty to me? Do you have loyalty to this person? Whatever the case may be, right? It's the same thing back in the day where union dock workers, mobs control the docks. At least for a long time. I can't speak for now. But, you think of like New York, think of LA to a different degree. They showed loyalty to the mob for whatever reason. Maybe they got their job through them or whatever. They helped their family. Whatever the case may be. Has that loyalty. Do they know it's a fucked up system? Yeah, they do. Probably the same thing in China. China didn't get rid of I'm going to say this in Cantonese, but the Hoksai Wui. The triads, And Hoksai Wui basically just means black society. But yeah. Triads still exist. Just a different form. Same thing with, Yakuza. Same thing with Russian mafia, Israeli mafia, American mafia, or various things, right? But that's also part of hierarchy. You have to understand these things, work within them. And I know people say, but work within the Democratic Republican system. That's not the system you should care about. It's a local community. Local stuff. It starts there. Grassroots. A lot of people get it mixed up. And they're worried about national stuff. And they ignore the local stuff. And vice versa. You have to find that flow. You have to find where that energy is and roll with it. And some people, sometimes people get stuck in their manner and they say, no, this is what we're seeing with. And that stubbornness, that sort of, stuff gets mixed up. But anyway, this is way too damn long. I started going off on tangents, so apologies. But I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all get some sort of insight in there. And see you later. Goodbye.